Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's podcast, I have the pleasure of welcoming Matt Haycox, who is entrepreneur, investor, business owner, many other things. We could roll off a list, really, couldn't we, of the ups and downs of what this journey brings. But Matt, thanks so much for being here, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate. You decided not to go with lover.
Do you know what we're going to bring that? Oh, that'll be coming in. That'll be coming in further in the podcast. We'll stick around. We'll find out what Matt means by lover. But look, Matt, for anyone that doesn't know, mate, I always ask just that 30-second overview of what you've done and where you are now, essentially.
I tell you what, I've never been able to condense this past 5 minutes, below 5 minutes, never mind 30 seconds. So this is going to be a new task for me. I've been in business all my life. I came from a family where my dad was a business owner, but I guess not in a way that we would have worked together. Certainly with my early inspiration, let's say, but we took very different paths in business. Very aggressively built up a business in my early 20s, became the UK's biggest strip club owner, and had a whole host of other businesses too. Went spectacularly bankrupt in 2008, lost a lot overnight, and rebuilt from there, really learning from the mistakes I made, and but building on the foundations that I already had. We're 15 years, 16 years past that now, although there's some negative people out there that will never let me forget it. And my business now very much revolves around lending and investing in other businesses, primarily small businesses back in the UK. But I don't just provide money; I provide support, and let's say a different set of eyes and different set of advice than any other fund or any other bank could really provide. Because I've been there, I've done it, and whatever mistakes my clients are making, I've probably made them 20 years earlier.
Love it. I think where we'll start, Matt, is the being able to come back, the rebound. I think that says a lot about you, and I think that's where we'll start because so for anyone sticking around, we are going to cover off the reality of entrepreneurship, why they call this journey the 1%, and I think that's a great place to start is rebounding from a place where I suppose that was probably one of the lowest of lows where you build something up which is so great, you hit that depth, but to come back, there's not many people that are able to do that. So I think the saying of, diamonds are formed under pressure. I think pressure does two things, crushes you or forms a diamond. So let's just start with that. You've been able to deal with that pressure. That says a lot.
I mean, look, I've got probably a few different answers or a few different avenues we can go down on this, right? I mean, look, for me, first thing I always say is that I almost don't think I have an exciting story here where people expect this, climbing through the ditches and somehow coming back from from an almost suicidal point. I mean, look, yes, it wasn't fun being made bankrupt, but I really didn't see that I had another choice other than to get back on the horse again. I was 27 years old. I had a 1-year-old daughter who needed feeding. I had a wife who needed a roof over her head. And I always say that I wasn't born to be poor. And on that particular day, I was poor. I've been living at large, building up businesses and having a pretty much 8-figure empire. Prior to that, I've been living a fantastically let's say exotic personal life, and that was what I wanted. So I think for me, it's very if you're going to be successful at anything, you've got to expect lots of bumps along the road. Maybe not necessarily absolute turmoil, although we'll probably get into that later. That the reality is, if you play the game long enough, the lows will be as big as the highs, if not bigger and more frequent. But I think it's imperative to have that why, that reason why you're doing it, because I think if you've got that, and whatever it is, and I know there's a lot of talk nowadays about how money can't be your only motivator, and nowadays that isn't for me. But having money is a big motivator for me. So when I am poor, if I go bankrupt, if I have a loss, then my motivator is that I want, I want the money again. And I think if you can apply that to anything you look at, why do people who fail not get up and go again? I think it's probably just because you don't give a shit enough. I mean, look, there may be some more deep-rooted mental health, psychological issues and stuff that go on with that. But like, I don't know, if I'm doing something, if I'm playing rugby, and I just don't give a shit about rugby, and if I can't get a tackle right, I couldn't give a fuck. I'm not gonna go and try until I'm successful because I just don't care. But if I'm doing something that matters to me, if I'm with my kids, if I'm playing paddle tennis or something that I'm committed to, then I don't care how rough it is along the way. I'm going to stick it out until I come out the other end.
Yeah, I like the whole work on your strengths, not on your weaknesses. And I think there's some confusion. At school, you're told, work on your weaknesses and work on this, whereas actually you realize you can outsource most of your weaknesses. Like you say, if you don't care about rugby, why on earth would you have an interest or get involved in it? And I think that's something you learn along the way is actually you're really good at something, double down on that because someone else can pick up the shortfall of the weaknesses. Look, with discipline sacrifice, you've obviously made quite a lot. I talk about this in all of my content and it does pretty well because I think it's almost like pouring vinegar on an open wound. When you start talking about the sacrifices and the discipline that you've got to make in order to achieve some form of success, it can be a little bit of a poke in some pain points, or maybe the truth hurts sort of resonates with a lot of people. Discipline and sacrifice, what's that look like through the beginning years of actually building a business? That's where the fundamentals start, right?
Yeah, listen, I don't even think it's just through the beginning years. I mean, ultimately, success is the byproduct of the choices that you make. And I mean, people always talk about if you're going to start a business, you need to be prepared to obviously have sleepless nights, to be away from your family, to suffer and to eat shit until it becomes good. But I don't honestly think it really changes even when the businesses are successful. I mean, listen, maybe it can simmer down, but I guess it depends what your interests and what your overall growth plans are. I mean, look, I'm 25, 26 years into the business game now, and any woman who's in a relationship with me will tell you I'm a fucking nightmare because I've got no real interest outside of work. I always say, other than looking after the kids, I love to go to work and I like shagging, and that is that is really it. I don't have any hobbies,
Well, fun.
other than trying to keep fit. Trying to keep fit, if you can consider that a hobby. I love my work, and for me to switch off for it is very difficult. There's part of that love, but there's also part of the fact that if you're going to run businesses, they're going to be full of problems. Even if the business is going great, problems come up all the time, and you've got to deal with these problems with the little problems before they become big problems. So whatever stage of the game you're at, you've got to be prepared to have your dinners cancelled and interrupted, your holidays disrupted. The fact that those around you who can't get on the train of what this means to you are ultimately going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I love that. Problem solving every day, right? I've learned that more and more. I learn that every day.
Every day,
You're not
every
an
day.
entrepreneur. Yeah,
And the bigger and the bigger the business gets, ultimately the more problems there'll be. They'll just be different problems. When you first start out, you think that your problem is you've got no customers, you've got no money, and you've got no staff. But then when you get customers, money, and staff, you'll have a whole different set of problems.
yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? Because business will come with some stress, and it will come with the pressure, and you evolve, right? And your skin gets a little bit thicker, and you can deal with it. Now, if we were to throw Matt into the employed world, how long would you last being told what to do, having a life assigned for you?
Well, I think two answers to that. One, I wouldn't last very very long, but not because I can't do what I'm told, just because I know what I want. Because I think the flip side of that, where so I've got two answers for you, is people who go out there and say I'm starting my own business because I'm going to be my own boss, so I don't have to take orders from anyone. You're fucking deluded. And ultimately, we all answer to someone. You may think that I'm the boss of my empire, and therefore Matt has it easy. I've got to answer to my staff, or they'll leave me. I've got to answer to my funders, or they won't be funding me. I've got to answer to my customers, or if I'm not taking their call when they've got a problem at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, they might not be a customer again on Monday morning. So being able to play the game, being able to know that you have someone to answer to, and you have someone customer to serve, I think is absolutely crucial, whether you're a business owner or an employee. But no, I mean, I wouldn't last. Listen, I'm not. I guess I wouldn't be a dick at the end of the day. If I work for you, I work for you. You know, I've got to. You're paying me a price. I've got to play by your rules. But I just wouldn't last long because it's not for me. Because I know there's a different path for me out there.
Yeah. So what age did you know that you were going to be in the 1%? Because I used to hear, just quickly, I used to hear this terminology of the 1%, and I used to think, oh, it's a bit gimmicky because it's quite, it sells, it's quite clickbait. I'm realizing that it's truly the 1% because we are talking, it's the 1% that are able to do the things and keep going after failure after failure. When did you realize that that fire was in your belly for business?
Well, I mean, I knew I was going to be a business owner from from like my probably early teens, late single digits, but not so much because I loved business. I mean, obviously I had an interest in business because I guess that rubbed off from my dad, and read a few books. I mean, you mentioned Alan Sugar before we came on this call. I remember one of the earliest, probably the earliest business book I ever read was Alan Sugar's biography, The Amstrad Way, I think it was at the time, where he didn't have a grey hair on him on the cover on that book. It was one of my dad's books that I just nicked off his bookshelf. So that sparked my interest in business. But quite bluntly, the real reason I wanted to be in business is because I think the perception back in the early 90s and before that was the only way to make big money was to own your own business. Unless you were maybe a movie star or something, getting big bucks in Hollywood. But other than that, the only way to make big money was to own your own business. So that's really what set me off on my journey, because I have, always been very financially motivated. I think for different reasons over the years. If you'd have asked me 25 years ago what my financial motivation was, it was to have, 7-bedroom mansions in many countries around the world and a private jet to fly between them. I think, as time goes on, I've mellowed out on that, and it's less for materialistic purposes and more for purposes of freedom. But I have always been very, very financially motivated.
Do you think the financial motivation, how long does that take to wear off? Because I have to say, in the beginning, for me, it's like I've seen my parents with no money. I've seen the struggle, and then the kids feel it. So I thought, well, I really don't want that, especially when I had my son. So it was kind of really realizing that, oh, I have a dependent now. I really don't want the same. When did you realize that, because the thing is, money's not the root of all evil, right? It is a resource that is incredibly resourceful and it gives you options.
Listen, I think, yeah, for me, the comment of money being the root of all evil, it's just an excuse told by poor people who can't be asked to earn any money. I mean, I don't really see, we talk about money changing people, booze changing people, drugs changing people, etc. Drugs, I mean, maybe not so sure of, because it's a wild concoction, isn't it? But for me, when it comes to money and booze, it doesn't change anyone; it just amplifies them. And and when you look at those pissed dickheads, the dickheads when they're sober as well. And so I think for me, the money just allows you to do more of whatever it was before. So yeah, like I said before, when I was much younger, I wanted lots of material things for me. Nowadays, I think the novelty of those material possessions wears off very quickly. I mean, I talk about this a lot on on my videos and stuff. Whether it's a car or whether it's a super expensive watch, every time I buy them, I've lost interest with them within a day. I mean, literally within a day or 2 days, I really don't care. I really don't care about them anymore. I think for me, the having the money is more, so being a relaxant that things that you don't have the stresses, that you can provide for yourself, you can provide for your family. It's funny because I was thinking about this a lot recently for me, and maybe it's easier to say because I've got the money and I can have the cars and things, but the cars or the jewelry aren't really what makes me happy with money. I think the relaxant for me is not having to look at price tags. If I go to the supermarket, never ever ever would I look at the price of an item. I won't even look at the price of the bill when when the guy asks me to pay at the end, because I know that whether it's 50 quid or 550 quid, it doesn't make the blindest bit of difference to me. So I don't have to think about it. Within reason, if I do any kind of clothes shopping, if I take my daughter into the early learning centre and I'll pick up 6 or 7 or 8 toys when she probably doesn't need any more than the one. And it just doesn't matter to me, because whether that toy is 5 quid, 8 quid, 20 quid, it just doesn't matter. And I think for me, that is that kind of level of money to get that is what makes you much happier, much more relaxed. Whether or not I'm getting outside in an Uber or getting in a Lamborghini, I really couldn't give a shit.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I think it's the freedom, and this is where I think there's massive blurred lines. Is that, as you said, it's the poor mindset that would turn around and say it's an insecurity where they turn around and say, "Well, money is the root of all evil," and it's like the other one that absolutely cracks me up, mate. I talk about this all the time on my short form, and it blows up. Is when people go, "Well, the thing is, the best things in life are free." You fucking tell
Mm.
me one thing that's free. It's not. When was the last time you saw a healthy homeless person? You don't. So money really
Or,
is.
or, or on that, sorry to, but even when people say, the best times are free because it's the times you have with, with the people that matter to you most and the people that you love. Okay, but how can you spend that time with them if you've got the stresses of money weighing on you, if you can't take the day off work to hang out with them? I guess what we're trying to say is you don't need 100 million quid to be happy, but unless you've got a base level of a decent roof over your head, with a mortgage that is paid, with an income that, okay, it might not be there forever, you might not be able to retire today, but you know that you can take 3 months off work or 6 months off work without it crippling you. If you can't get to those base levels of financial security, then you can't get to enjoy any of the three things.
This podcast was sponsored by the employment breakout program, How to Fire Your Boss and Replace Your Income. If you want a life of purpose, one with time freedom and financial stability, head to the description below where you can join a free introduction webinar to learn how business could change your life. You're based in Dubai at the moment, and we were talking off camera. There's two different worlds at the moment. I mean, in the UK here, we'll have 60% of the UK population that buy into the news media over here of this cost of living crisis. But yet the supermarkets are full, airports are full, showrooms are full, restaurants, bars. It's bad money spending habits. That's what it is. And then you get home and they're like, I've got no money. And as I know that you invest as well, and I've been in finance and I've been investing for some years now. I've been very well attuned with my money, which has allowed me to leave my job and float myself and run my own businesses. Money management, right? And just having like basic good habits. Majority of people don't have it. I mean, what have you seen, and what have you gone through in terms of really looking after your money that's benefited you now?
Well, I got to be honest. I mean, I am I am a better earner than I am a spender, and I would never profess to be something I'm not, or try and teach something that I can't do. And I think I've got better. I've certainly got better as I've got older, because I've realised that as young as I feel, my time isn't here forever. I mean, I've always, from an income perspective, maybe not as bad now, but even up to a few years ago, I've kind of spent every penny I've earned, and kind of convinced myself that I'm building value in my businesses that I'm going to sell, and that's what's and that's what's going to come, I guess, come good in the back end. But I guess in that respect, I guess the interesting thing we can take from it is that with that mindset, I think correct mindset, it doesn't matter how much you earn. And listen, I'm not going to say I was living paycheck to paycheck, obviously, because of course I wasn't. But if I earned £1 million a year, I'd spend £1 million a year. Yes, I wasn't under pressure, because I'm not thinking, oh, fuck, I've got to get to the end of the month to get my paycheck. But whatever I would earn, I would spend. And I think if I was to give a piece of investment advice from this, which is something that I didn't do but I wish I did do, is however much you earn, there's a figure. Let's call it 10%. There is always a figure that you can take away from your earnings and invest each week, each month. No matter how good or bad things are, and I think if we all did that relative to our earnings, you will wake up phenomenally surprised further down the line. I mean, listen, I'm 43 now. Jokes aside, I'm probably still a spring chicken in terms of what what the future can look like for me. And I've missed out on 25 years. Well, maybe 20 years, let's say, because I did start in my mid-30s, being better at it. But 20 years of not putting money away. And I look at what I've earned over the years, and I've had bankrupt years, but I've also had, multi seven figure years. I could have, without even thinking about it, put a grand a week away, for example. I mean, okay, some weeks I didn't have the grand, but other weeks I'd have 20 grand. But I could have done a grand a week for 20 years easily. I mean, I could have done a lot more. And if you apply to that an investment value and a compound growth, that's multi seven figures I would have sat here. I would never have missed the money. Literally, wouldn't have even taken a blink about that money coming out of me, and that would have me completely set, set to relax. Now, listen, I'm fortunate that I've done it in other ways, but that is, I don't want to go too far down that line, that answer, because that will just justify. That'll just be me trying to justify why I didn't do something I should have done. It's like say, I always used to say, well, I don't mind not having a six pack because it's a choice between a six pack and red wine, and I enjoy the red wine more. Ultimately, I mean, it's just an excuse, and I would like the six pack and the red wine, and maybe I need to find some other sacrifices somewhere else. But I think the biggest mistake anyone can make is not putting that money away early doors, and taking over your conversation here, but it's something I've really tried to hammer into my younger, well, so my elder daughter, over the last few years. And listen, kids, you can only push them so far, can't you? But I think I've finally got somewhere with my daughter now, and we were skiing a couple of months ago, and she's a bit of a pussy, and she whenever we ask her to do something adventurous, she always says, "Oh, I'm not doing that." And I always used to try and bribe her as a kid, and she'd never back down. I'd go, "I'll give you a 10, I'll give you 20 quid," and the price would keep going up and up and up, and she'd still never say yes. So the other week we were skiing, and a few of my mates were doing a parasail, like parachute jump thing off the mountain, and I kind of said as a joke, I said, "Harley," I said, "Are you doing it with the guys? I'll give you 1,000 quid if you do it, yeah?" Just fully expected to say no, and she goes, "Yeah, yeah, book me." I was like,
No.
"Oh, right." So she went and did it there, and then obviously I gave her the money. But I said, "Listen, I'm giving you the money. It's yours to do what you want with." I said, "But don't go and blow it." I said, why don't you go and invest it in something?" And and she said, "Well, I don't really understand investment. What can I do?" So I've sent her a lot of articles and web links over the last few weeks and months, to read about Bitcoin, to read about gold, to read about tracker funds and stuff. Really, ultimately boring things. I know people might think crypto is wild, but I'm talking about, very very like taking Bitcoin for the long term, not to trade it. And she's finally bought into that now. She's going to go and buy herself 1,000 quid worth of gold, actually. But yeah, we're going off on a bit of a tangent. But yeah, ultimately, if I had that mentality imparted in me, I think, because my dad actually used to tell me the exact opposite. And I remember having a conversation with this about him recently, and saying, there's not many things that I would look to my parents and say, "Well, that's absolute bullshit." Okay, maybe we have differences of opinions, but my dad always used to tell people he didn't have a pension, as in the pension that whether you take a corporate pension that you pay into or whatever. He used to say, "I don't have a pension because my business is my pension. What do I need that crap for, basically, when I can go and, make eight figures selling my business?" So obviously, I used to hear that and hear that. I won't say I had it ingrained in me, because he wasn't trying to teach me. It's just what I learned by osmosis, if you like. But I look back now and I remember saying to him, "What a load of bollocks, Dad. Like, what's stopping you doing the two? Fine, you're going to build your business. Hopefully, you're going to sell it for eight figures. But ultimately, the pension is just putting a bit of money away each month with a tax wrapper around it, where the government are giving you a freebie. Why would you possibly not take advantage of that?" And another wealthy mate of mine, we were talking about ISAs and things, and he's like, "Well, I don't bother with an ISA. It's pennies." Okay, it might be pennies in relation to all the money you've got, but why would you not do it? Why would you not bang that 20 grand away and have the ISA wrapper around it, so that you don't have to pay any tax in it? I think these little things add up to, micro differences that make no skin off your back whatsoever, add up to massive gains 10, 15, 20 years down the line. So I'll shut up now. I think I've hammered my
Oh,
point
mate.
home.
No, honestly, all of that. I mean, my son's nearly 11, and I teach him all of this. And do you know what? It might be boring to some people, and it is to a lot of people, but I'm massive in commodities. Totally agree with the stocks and shares. I've got my private pension. And I think having all of the boring stuff taken care of first, you're looking after yourself, because you're not dibble dabbling in all this speculative stuff. And we were talking about, like, the fixed investing, peer-to-peer loan notes, that kind of stuff. That's where it gets a little bit more, I wouldn't say that's low to medium risk stuff, but then you can start sort of testing the waters with other things. But I think the education isn't there to teach people that when you start earning, start thinking 20 years down the line. Because again, which we'll move on to now, is that we are in a world where everyone's got a short attention span. Everyone wants to use the word fast, quick, 12 months is very
Mm.
short term. And there was a statistic of the average UK millionaire is about 42 years old, and it's taken about a 20-year period. That seems to have been put into a box and forgotten about, and everyone thinks it's within 12 months because social media has done a great job of painting that picture. What would you say is a fair time length, really, to see some form of success, which is subjective, but what would you say the time length is?
Well, I mean, I couldn't put a time on it because, like you said, there's so many variables in that. I mean, I guess for the people who want a positive answer first, I would say that that despite the rubbish spoken on social media about how quick you can get rich, what social media and the internet has done is allow mass distribution, distribution at scale, which is something that didn't exist many years ago. So whilst on the one hand, I want to say that if you're going to try and build a business, you've got to expect years of blood, sweat, and tears. The flip side of that is if you do get it right, then the internet and social media gives you the ability to put yourself and your product in front of millions and millions of households overnight, which was just an option that was never available to people 15, 20, 30, 40 plus years ago. Again, I'm kind of thinking of different things in my head while we're talking here. The one side of it is be prepared for that blood, sweat, and tears. But also, if that's only because you also don't know what you're doing. If I start businesses now, I actually don't expect to have years of blood, sweat, and tears because I think if I do, I've done something wrong because I've done the kind of 20 years of paying the price of making the mistakes, and I now know what a business needs to look like, what a sales and marketing and distribution strategy needs to look like, how to raise money, how to hire the right people. Not that I'm very good at that, but and I know those pieces. So I think yes, be prepared for years of pain. But if you want to shortcut that pain, then go get educated, go get some mentors because I could take someone now. And if I could give you all the steps to follow, I'm not going to say you're going to become a millionaire overnight, but I will certainly shortcut, a large percentage of your journey.
And the hurdles and the problems probably as well. I think this leads up nicely to my next question. Now, if we look at the employed world and you've got employees, workers, they're going to be in a mindset that they think they go in, they check in, they've got to do tasks, they've given their roles, they're told what to do, and then they leave and they can go home and, Groundhog Day starts again. I believe there are a lot more people as human beings. We can lift heavier in the gym, you can train harder. Uh, we can push ourselves a lot more, but it really is dependent of the people that you're around. As you are, I'm very thankful now. I wasn't always, but I don't think any of my immediate friends aren't already millionaires, if not multimillionaires, which blows my mind. And I'm constantly uplifted. So I have the right circle around me. Whereas if you look at the majority, if you go into a warehouse, you could probably sum up the mindset because they're not around the winners. They're not around people who are running a fast race. So how important has it been? And also a little bit advice in your answer for people who are like, yeah, that's not possible. Yeah, business is too far down the line. I think it comes down to really the people that you're around to open up your eyes and go, fuck me, there's a lot of opportunity.
Absolutely comes around down to the people that you're around. I mean, obviously that expression of we are the product of the five people that we're closest to, or I've butchered it, but whatever it is, it's become a repetitive expression for a reason. But I think, I mean, look, you talk about all the people in your immediate circle being millionaires, and I think when we talk about success, we do always default to money and a financial answer. But I think one of the things I love about Dubai is the attitude and mindset of people here. And yes, there's plenty of millionaires and 10 billionaires and billionaires, etc. over here. But I've got a lot of people in my circle of friends who are PTs who are one of my best mates is a massage therapist, but he has his own little business. And I know people who are employees working in recruitment or real estate or wherever it may be. Now, these people are all a long way from being a millionaire, but they've all got a very happy, hungry entrepreneurial mindset. Now, listen, I still need to be surrounded by other people who are effectively better than me and are gonna level me up. But I also think there's plenty of I know there's plenty of people with lots more money than me that I wouldn't want to really learn anything from because their mindset is so far removed, and from what I think looks like success to me. So that's one thing. I think also, so whilst being a business owner absolutely isn't for everyone, being an entrepreneur in your own little world could be for everyone. I think what I talked a few times on it, made comments about the fact that I've not been a very good hirer over the years, and I'm getting better at it, but but still not there now. Still not there yet, rather. And I realised a year or two ago that one of my biggest issues was not hiring people who had the same values as me. And I sat down after I kind of had that realization. I sat down and wrote out the kind of 10 or 15 things, whatever it is, of what I think are my values and therefore my business's values. And it's very important that, I guess you said that they're mine. I'm not saying they're right. I'm saying that they're mine. And it's my values, and it's my business. So if you want to work in my business, you have to be party to my values. But the first thing, literally, value number one actually says, we're here to make money. And I said that because I think there's all this talk about doing this for altruism, and this is more important than money, that's more important than money. There's all these very important things, but none of them can be done without money. So I did want to stress that first, that yes, we're here to have a good time. Yes, there might be croissants on the breakfast table and five-a-side football on a Saturday to have team camaraderie, but we can't do any of that unless we make money. So so we do have to realise why we've actually come to work in the first place. But the value number two was, we are entrepreneurial. And I very much mean that as I want every person in the business to be an entrepreneur themselves, because if we take entrepreneurialism as the definition in terms of taking risk, building something, etc., then that is something, whether you're the receptionist, the cleaner, the marketing manager, or a C-suite employee, you can bring that entrepreneurial view and spirit to your day-to-day job. If you're a receptionist in a big company, I know that they're probably a dying breed nowadays with all Zoom technology and everything like that. But if you're a receptionist, how many of them do you walk in there and you see her reading a book in between calls, right? Okay, you might think you've got the cushiest job in the world, getting paid to read a book all day, but both you're letting yourself down, and your boss is letting you off ridiculously like that. Why are you sat there reading a book? Why are you not, googling prospects for the sales team, tapping up your mates who you may be able to bring into the business, or just thinking of other opportunities, or something mind and financially expanding. And listen, I can talk this point to the nth degree, but I think the point's clear that it doesn't just come down to business owners and millions of pounds. It comes down to a mindset of, are we positive or are we negative? Is the glass half full, or is it half empty? Do you want to be a moaner, or do you want to have a smile on your face? And I think we can all make that shift. Yes, we can't all be millionaires, because if we were all millionaires, then then the next people that need to be decimillionaires or 100 millionaires. There always has to be a sliding scale of wealth and a class system and everything else. It's just utterly improbable to think we can have anything else. But no matter how much money we've got or haven't got, there's complete mindset shifts and ways that we behave that can be very different.
That's the difference, isn't it? It's the growth mindset, and that comes from the people that you're around. I mean, I'm massive into my fitness, and that's been a massive part. Well, it's been a massive outlet to deal with letting off stress and letting off the pressure, and letting the steam go. But even being around people who are in fitness and self-improvement, that kind of circle is very ambitious, right? Whether it's financial or it's personal, I don't think you can't not be around those types of people if you're looking to change your life, because you just touched on it there. I talk about it all the time, so I won't jump into it too much in this one. But the whole moaning, it's simple. You can take action or you can do fuck all. There's no in between. There's no sitting on the fence.
And
It's
I'd tell you as well, because I know, I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, depending on circumstances, you may think it's hard, it's hard or impossible even to go and level up with that circle of friends around you, those people you associate with. Now, depending on personal circumstances, maybe that isn't too untrue. But whilst you might not be, you can improve something not just by improving it, but by also getting rid of the shit around it. So, yes, it might be lovely for you to go and get 5 billionaires around you right now to mentor you. If that's not possible, fine. But what is possible is cutting out your auntie Kath, who's a smoking depressant, financial drain on you or whatever it is. Starting to spend less time with your drug taking negative mates or whatever it is. And if you start to remove some people, then you'll naturally elevate anyway. I mean, obviously, it'd be great if you can go and move, get more new people and better people and up and up and up. But you can start to almost naturally become a helium balloon by taking some of the dead weight off around you. And if you can't get any real life people around you just yet, there's plenty of online mentors that can that you can learn from, that can help to elevate you as well.
I love it. Well, as we sort of come to a close, Matt, what would be your? I'm going to ask for three sort of things to cover off here. Three tips in terms of
Greedy, very greedy.
greedy. Three. We're gonna take the full three. Is that just acknowledging that we're in a super busy world right now. And when I say super busy, I mean fast pace, a lot of noise, a lot of distractions, a lot of ways to make money,
Mhm.
and a lot of people speaking, and it can be quite hard to navigate that. With your experience and knowledge that you've had in business now, you would have, you've got that sort of bloodhound nose to sort of really smell and weed your way and navigate through the bullshit. What would be like three top tips for someone listening in right now, definitely wanting to make big moves in their lives? What would three things that you'd pass on?
I think so. So for me, look, we talked about people around you a minute ago. I mean, networking is an absolutely crucial skill. It's something that I attribute, the vast majority of my success to, and still spend, literally probably 40%, 50% of my working life. I still spend that networking. Whether that's nurturing relationships or building new ones. If I'm going on a podcast, if I'm hosting a podcast, even things like that. They're different, different ways of networking. Before we came on this recording, you and I had already started to talk about something that may be a potential work angle. There's so I've always got my eyes and mind open to finding new relationships, and that's skill number one. I think it's very important to know how to raise money. Now that can also come off the back of networking. But yes, you can bootstrap a business. Yes, you can probably do things a lot cheaper than you thought you could. But there will always be a time in business when you need to raise some money for growth. Whether that's startup or whether it's growth, and raising money is a skill. So I think it's important to be able to learn how to do that. And building out your own personal brand, I think fantastically important. I started that by accident really 6 or 7 years ago, but the opportunities I get from the profile that I've got, and listen, in the grand scheme of things, my profile is absolutely tiny, but I get fantastic opportunities offered to me, whether it's monetary, whether it's opportunities to go on TV, for example. Any of these things, I've had them off the back of my personal brand. And I know I actually saw someone comment on one of my posts yesterday, which was like a collab with a guy I'd just done a podcast with, and he was talking about personal brand, and this person had put underneath it, "Can people please stop talking about personal brand? It's totally cringe." I didn't get into it with her on there, but I kind of had a quick look at her page. One post, no followers, no name, etc. I thought, well, for me, of course, that's why you're saying what you're saying. But what people completely miss the point with personal brand, that we all have a personal brand anyway. It's just whether or not people know about it. If you're a great, happy, motivated deal maker, then that's what you are anyway. Surely you want 100,000 people to know about that as opposed to two people. I mean, I think for me, the only people there may be someone who's really is genuinely publicity shy for whatever reason, but I think the only reason to not have a personal brand, like we were talking about earlier about amplification of something, is because you're a dick. Because if you've got if you've got a high profile personal brand and you're a dick, then there's just going to be more people that know you know you're a dick than if you haven't. But if you're a good person with good ideas, with a positive outlook and ambition, then why would you not want to be connected with more and more people to do that? So look, I mean, I could give many things, but for three, build a personal brand, learn how to raise money, and learn how to network. If you can do those, you're off to the races.
Mate, I think those are three brilliant tips. I mean, no audience, no sales. No retention, no revenue. It's the world that we're in. And I think just to finish on the social media, a lot of people are reluctant or scared to go on social media because of all these people that have got a lot to say. And the problem is, I'd say 60% of people on social media, misery loves misery, and they're probably not where they want to be. So they look to doom and gloom other people with that negativity. But Matt, look, mate, I've loved this one. Loads of information. We've covered quite a lot off. Anything you want to sort of share? Anything you're up to at the moment? Anywhere anyone can go and just have a little nose what you're up to? Where do you normally send people?
Well, listen, I'm always up to something, whether that's raising investment, investing in businesses, giving advice, or just getting my bum out on Instagram. So come and find me. I've also got my own podcast as well. But I am the Matt Haycox. That's TheMattHaycox on all things social. I've got a podcast called Stripping Off with Matt Haycox, which is on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else you want to get your podcast from. And I have a website which is matt-haycox.com. You can sign up to my newsletter. We've got about 15,000 people that get my weekly ramblings every Friday. So yeah, come and find me. I'm not hard to find, and if you reach out, I will always reply.
Awesome. It will pop up on the screen and I'll include them all in the description. Matt, absolute pleasure. And then what I'll do is we'll wrap this up and we'll snap a photo. We'll get this out there and loads of golden nuggets. So Matt, thanks so much for joining me, mate.
Thanks, Aaron.